Hello, my name is Baneet. Today is July 26, 2026, and I officially sold my SAT company again. This is the second time I've sold it. The first one was, it wasn't a big acquisition. It was pretty small, actually. This one is quite a bit larger compared to that one. And, I'm 19 years old now. I was 17 when I first started, and I kind of want to share a few of the lessons I've learned throughout this time period after going on and winning Alex Ramosi school games, after um, selling the first company, building this one, how I built it differently, and then what I am going to do after this, now that I'm done this, because I don't want to sit around and be bored because I'm going to get depressed. So, a few of the things that I've learned have come across what product to build if you're confused on what to build and how I'm going to pick my next one. What you need to do to scale, and then what you do to maintain that scale. There's like the mental mindset part of it, which is probably the hardest, I'm not going to lie. But first, like, which product should you pick? Obviously, it's one that you have experience in. When I picked my first company, right? So this is kind of the first point. I graduated high school early, and I didn't really know what to do. I was really like confused. I didn't know what to work on. I was really depressed because I was really bored. And one thing you'll learn as a consistent thing for me is that I do things because I'm bored. And so, I got extremely bored because I graduated early. I'm like, I don't know what to do now. And so I'm like, I can do something productive. Finally, I'm gonna start a company. And so I was like, but for what? I didn't really know. I knew I wanted to make a lot of money, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what. I didn't know what I would do. I didn't know what I would sell. I'm like, what am I good at? I'm good at nothing except for taking tests. I was really good at taking tests. So I'm like, I'm gonna go teach people to take tests. But what tests? Okay, I did really well on the SAT, which is a test that you take for college admissions. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and teach that. It's very simple. This is literally monkey thinking, monkey business is what I call it. So I'm like, I'm gonna go teach kids how to learn the SAT. Now I was really scared to charge them. I figured that part out. That's a whole other story. But the whole idea was I looked into a market which already existed. There was demand for it, and I was good at it. And those are kind of the big three things that you should look for when you're looking for your first product. It depends again on what you want to build, right? Two types of companies. One is like the startup type, the one where you have the chance to go hit $1 billion, make a bunch in like 3 to 5 years, have an exit. And then there's a cash flow business, which there is demand for. People know it exists, people know that it's a thing, and you can go all in on it and know that there is a demand for the thing you're building. Startups, on the other hand, are you don't know if there's a demand for it yet, and it could do well, but there's a very, very large chance that it doesn't. And so, if you are starting your first company, I highly, highly, highly recommend building one of these cash flow companies because you'll need a lot of money for the startup companies, or you can go raise money, right? You can go do that, but to learn the initial skills are extremely important, and I'll explain what those skills are as well. But the whole idea of the way I choose my companies, now I'm going to shift to more startup esque, like things where I want to take a big shot. I want to bet on the future. But there's a middle ground between both of these, which I want to share. Between the startup, which is the big shot, and then the cash flow, which is like there's already demand for it, stuff like that. It's in the middle where there is kind of demand for it, but there's not many companies that have gone ahead and actually helped solve that demand. So an example for this is I'm going to show you like Anthropic. Anthropic is the company behind Claude. Maybe you know Claude, maybe you don't. Claude is like ChatGPT, but it's more enterprise, and a lot of consumers also love using it. Claude started about 3 years ago in 2023 when the guy Dario worked at OpenAI initially, and then he left the company to go start this company. Why? I don't know. I didn't really look into the details of why. But I do know that his company now has a higher revenue run rate than OpenAI. It's because they went for enterprise deals more, which is like the bigger companies, right? They went ahead and targeted like large scale companies that need more token spend, more AI spend, and they want to go test it out. Which now I believe it's not a big amount. I think as of right now, Anthropic is 30 billion revenue run rate, and then ChatGPT is 25 billion. And so the whole idea behind this company was how can we target businesses, whereas OpenAI was how can we target individuals, right? And I would say OpenAI is kind of trying to shift into more enterprise. But anyways, like Dario took a big swing because he knew there was demand in the market and not many providers for that market, which is why I did very well. There's many other examples I can share for this, but these kind of companies are the ones where you have the highest chance of making the most amount of money because there's a lot of demand for it, and it's a problem you can solve and get a lot of people who are interested, even though there's initial very small demand, right? Um, and so again, the markets you really want to go for if you want to build a longer term company is that one where it's the intersection of startups and the cash flow businesses, which is like you want to find something which already has demand. Not many providers are in that space yet, so that means competition is low, and you can go all in on it and crush it. And you have to work really hard for a very short period of time, but that means that you will do really well. So right now there's like this whole AI boom. I actually think that AI is more of a supplement than it is a business model on its own. What I mean by that is people right now are trying to sell AI, but in the future, what I believe is going to happen is that you can't really sell AI. Think of it like the internet, right? When the internet first came out, there was this big internet boom. They call it the dot-com bubble, where everybody was like, "Oh my God, the internet! Go get on the internet! Everybody's listening to get on the internet." And then everybody realized you can't really sell the internet. It's just a thing. It's a point. It's a leverage point that now companies can use to go do other things. Which is why now the biggest things that are available on the internet are not the internet itself, but people built on top of the internet, like Google, right? Google is just a way to access around the internet, right? That's the biggest company that came out of it. And now everything that has happened since then has been built on top of it, not because of it. Very different things. And so I don't see companies, AI companies existing or being as big in the future compared to right now. I see it ending up as like there are going to be a lot more people who build on top using AI. And that's a great place to start. And so that's kind of what I want to do. That's what I think people should be doing. Take existing industries and how can you turn it into more useful and faster delivery and cheaper delivery and easier accessibility through AI, right? And there's a whole hate thing against AI right now, which I don't really understand. I guess those people are gonna be left behind. It's okay. There's always gonna be people like that, but yeah, that's the first point for business, which is picking the model you want to do, and you have to be very aware of the model you're doing. If you're doing the startup model, be aware that it's going to take time. You're going to need to raise money. It's going to be very difficult, and there's a very high chance it doesn't work. If you're going the middle path, you want to expect that again, it will also take time. There's a little more demand, but there's also competition, so there might be monopoly effects where early people who started early may be the ones who go ahead and win most of the market, where you may be taking a small portion. Now, albeit small portion of a very large market is still a lot of money, but you ideally want to have the monopoly if you want to be the biggest. And then thirdly, cash flow businesses, you really want to sit there and accept that this may not be a business that could scale to 10 million, 50 million, 100 million. This was my SAT company, for example, right? The highest you can probably get it to is like 500,000 a month, a million a month. And for most people, for the majority of people, that is a lot of money. A lot of money, and you don't need more than that. I want to aim bigger than that, obviously, because I think I have the ability to do. I also got inspired by a lot of people that I know in my circles, people I've met, mentors I've met throughout my life, and they've told me, hey, you should go for bigger swings. It looks like you have the initial, they called it the starter business. You got your starter business, go move on to a bigger one. And that's why I'm going for bigger shots. So you have to be aware of which type of business you are in. And another thing I wanted to put as a point above this is that the business you pick is actually very, very reflective of what point you are in life. You will see more older people. You'll have the stories of like the young guys who are like doing the startup, and they raise like $500 million or not 500 million, like $5 million, $10 million, and you'll see these guys and you're like, okay, well these guys are gonna win, right? Obviously, you'd be very surprised. A lot of these bigger companies are actually started, the ones that you know these days, like today, they're started by older people, mostly because they have the money and the cash to be able to go ahead and be like, yeah, I can risk 5 to 10 years not making money and go all in on this one idea and not need to worry about making any cash because they have the ability to, right? So you'll see people like Jeff Bezos, who started when he was 30. I believe the McDonald's guy was started by, like, he was like in his 50s. KFC, same thing. Panda Express, same thing. These people started when they were older because they had more experience and they also had more money to expend on the idea that they wanted to build. And so, very important point there. When you're younger, you are more likely to start a cash flow business. And here's another point. If you are poorer, if you came from a lower economic status, you are more likely to start a cash flow business. and even different types of cash flow businesses, right? And sometimes, like, I like to put the journey of not just entrepreneurship but earning money on your own on a very different time scale. Or like, I don't like the idea of entrepreneurship. There's like working for yourself. And very poor people, I've noticed, like who've come from lower economic backgrounds, they're more likely to be salespeople, or they're more likely to start cash flow businesses that are like very, very niche or very small. There's also a lot of competition for those. It's very hard to grow in those. And then people who come from nicer backgrounds, I would say their families kind of had money. You know, maybe they were doctors, they were well educated, lawyers, engineers, those kind of people, entrepreneur backgrounds, right? They're more likely to go for this side, which is like the more startup-y type businesses, or the type of companies that change the world, they have the ability to go take more risk. And so you have to be very aware of where you are in your life to be able to understand what kind of company you can take a risk on. And I would argue, if you know you are in a better economical position, to go for these type of businesses, and not for the cash flow type businesses, because the truth is you may not need the cash. And worst case scenario, you can go work a job. And you probably won't need to if you know you're in a good economic position, at least for a few years, right? Like if you have a house and you don't need to worry about food and your college was paid for, you are likely in a very good economic position. You don't really need to worry about much. And you should go take bigger swings. And so a lot of advice I'd say online is very generic. And a lot of the people giving the advice don't really understand what position their viewers may be in. And that's why most advice is very confusing, because most advice should be catered to the individual. And so I believe it's much better to just have an array of tools laid out for individuals, and they can go pick which one they want to do, which is what I'm doing to you right now. And so that's the first one. That's the first point, which is go pick a business model that is good for the position you're in life, and also to understand what kind of business model you're getting into and what that means for how your work is going to look, what your maximum income is going to look like, how the growth of that company is going to look like, right? The startup people, also, you won't expect cash very quickly. Cash flow people, it's literally in the name. You're going to expect cash really quickly, right? But it's not going to grow very high. Startups, you have a lot of economic value, a lot of equity value that will grow really quickly. And so that's kind of my first point on how to pick something. The second point is more revolving around like how do you grow it. And I think this is the one thing I became really good at, especially with the SAT. The first one we did both through mainly organic marketing, but then I started paid, so ads. We grew both on Instagram. And so the first one we grew to about 30K followers. Second one was about 550K followers. And so we grew quite a bit. It was gigantic growth. And it was a lot of planning to be able to get to that point. It's just the kind of videos you make. I could make a whole video on like how to make videos. But the main point I will sit around is you always want to see what is working and just do it better, or just do more of it. That is really the most you can do. And if you've done enough more and you've done enough better, then you just need to try something new. And that is the whole premise of how you build actually anything, really. It's just more, better, new, cheaper, faster, easier. Those are the 6 I would say. If you can implement that in all of your marketing and product, you will do very well, extremely well. And it depends on how large those multiplicative events are, as in like how easier is it compared to the other product, how cheaper is it compared to the other product, how much better is it compared to the other product. These are all things to consider. And so I would say, just for marketing, look at what has gone viral in the past, or look at what has done well for your specific product in the past, and do it better, do more of it, or do a new one. Try something new. You'll have to make on your own. Again, very generic marketing advice, but I would say that that is probably the best place you can start. It's just look at what people have done, understand why I did well, and then do more of it. You can't beat it. And so as for what I'm working on next, I want to take a shot at the larger scale companies, which is actually doing startups, actually doing higher end companies, and not a cash flow company, because truthfully, I don't really need it. I am also in a good financial position for my company, but also because truthfully, my family is doing quite well on their own, right? Now, we're not like deca centimillionaires, right? We don't have $100 million in the bank. But I'm very fortunate to have a family who has been able to provide for me for the last 20 years I've been alive, almost 19 years. And they give me food, they give me water. I have a house. I'm very grateful for all of this, and I'm very blessed to be born in this family, and I want to make the most of it. And I encourage you to do the same, whichever position you're in. You may not be in the position I am. Maybe you're ahead of me, right? Maybe you're a little bit behind me. Maybe you're way behind me in terms of economic position, right? Um, but you need to be aware of where you're at and really take advantage of that position. And so I've come to this understanding that I am actually very blessed to be in the position I am, and I am going to go take a risk at something like a software with a moat or a hardware with a software. And I want to go do that because I know those take time, they take a lot of energy, and also I want to take a big shot at something because I haven't really done that. And now I have the ability to do that from this cash flow business I ran in the past. And I have the skill, and I know how to market, all this kind of stuff. So that is kind of what I want to do next. Specifically, what I want to do, it's going to be related to something marketing channel adjacent. So it's going to be along the lines of like if you have something you're building, right? And you want to test how well a product or how well a marketing headline works within that product, we will autonomously split test for you. It sounds much easier than it actually is to build. There's a lot of things you have to measure, like metrics. How do you know what goes viral? How do you know what are the things that make people click more? So these are things we kind of have to engineer, and that's gonna be the fun part. Obviously, it's also gonna be really difficult, which is the fun part for me. I wasn't really solving a problem with the SAT. Sure, I was getting people like their scores, but I was never really creating a new product. The product was already out there. I was just marketing it in a more efficient way. Now I actually am going to build the product, make it a really good product, and then go ahead and market it more, which is going to be really exciting. I'm honestly really excited for that. And yeah, I just want to see this product exist. I think a lot of business owners would love it, and I've talked to a few people already. They seem to be very open to trying it. They're like, if this works, I'm willing to, pay for this. And that is usually a very good sign. And a lot of people need split testing. Everybody needs split testing if you own a product. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now. And that's my future product. And so yeah, that's kind of my lessons. I know I haven't made a video in a long time. I just wanted to make something to catch up. I always tell myself I'm going to do these more consistently. I don't really do it more consistently. It's okay. Maybe one day. But I do want to start YouTube. I think I want to start a YouTube for this specific concept of like split testing and then sell the SaaS. I've been very inspired by this one guy named Alex Becker. If you've seen him on YouTube, he's amazing. He's built a cash flow business, and then he went ahead to go build a software business, and he's done very well for himself. He started when he was 20. Now he's 36 or something. I think he started when he was 22, something like that. He's very successful. I look up to him. But anyways, that is my spiel. Thank you for listening. It's been a while. I'll see you guys sometime soon. I don't know. I'm not putting a timeline on it. I don't even know. All right. I'll see you guys soon.